All right, thank you for everyone who has stuck around. It's been quite a day, dynamic news cycle. And we will be hosting our last speaker for the day, Shiri Fein Grossman, who is the former head of policy of the foreign policy branch for regional affairs at the Prime Minister's office in Israel, and currently head of strategy and operations at the Israel-Africa Relations Institute. I will mention that she had an integral role in the Abraham Accords in 2020, and that she's also a member of Forum Dvora, which advances women in foreign affairs and defense positions. So Shiri, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to hearing anything that you can tell us about your insight in terms of the regional impact of this deal, if it is in fact implemented, and also in particular, what we might be looking at in terms of developments in the Arab world, specifically Saudi Arabia. So go ahead.
Thanks, Talia. I just want to say and emphasize I'm here today as to represent the Coalition for Regional Security, which is it's wait, I don't know by heart, but it's a new body that was founded to promote regional alliances to strengthen Israel's security, and has dozens of former stakeholders from every sphere, whether public, economic, and political, security, and otherwise. And tomorrow night is the official launch of the Abraham Shield Plan, which I'll represent in the remarks I have prepared. I want to keep it brief as possible to open it to be a dialogue, and I've heard some of the speakers before me that already went into some of the things. I first want to say, the best deal is the one that we didn't sign. There's always a better deal, and we must keep that in mind. This deal is not a good deal, but we don't have much longer, as you already heard in previous speakers, to save hostages, and some of the hostages we already lost in the time we waited. I think the main advantages of getting to this deal are not in this deal, are actually the new reality that we're seeing in Syria, with Bashar al-Assad, fall of the horrendous regime, and things that we've seen in the aftermath of this fall, what has transpired in Syria in the last decade, and the new reality in Lebanon that is still being developed, and there's a lot of hope, and we're coming into this new Middle East, new regional reality. And that is the main result of the war that we have been in the last year, 15 months to be exact. Moving forward, the big opportunity is to forge new regional alliances that will create a new, safer, more prosperous reality for both Israelis and Palestinians alike. We have in the region common enemies in the form of radical Islam, whether it's Shia with Houthis that been disrupting our sleep. I think of some of the people in the room and some of the people in Zoom in the past months and especially weeks, and also, of course, the Islamic Republic of Iran. But we also have Hamas in the Sunni sphere, and we also see the rise of Daesh coming back, ISIS. And we have, of course, Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab in other places, and we must not forget other regions as well. I think there is a new world order, a regional order that we're trying to create with the Coalition for Regional Security. That in this situation, that will create and prevent a situation that we've seen in the last 15 months from happening again. And this is a crucial point of time. It's not a question of just the release of the hostages we need, but to develop in the last weeks the return of the other hostages and a lasting ceasefire that will build the building blocks for this new reality that we need. And the Coalition for Regional Security has formed the Abraham Shield Plan, and there are a few main principles of that plan. The first of one is what we're trying to formulate with this plan is stopping or ending the military front in Gaza, returning all the hostages and establishing a technocratic transitional government in Gaza and regionally led de-Hamasification of Gaza. We understand this is not simple matters, and like others previous speakers, this is a long road ahead. It's not something that happens in months. There have been several attempts by the current government to form this alternative, and unfortunately every alternative that is trying to be to rise his head in Hamas was just beheaded. This is not just a format of it. We have one even opposition leader that has been shot in the head, who's trying to be an alternative to Hamas. The second principle is implementing and enforcing, of course, the agreement with in Lebanon through zero violations policy and strengthening the Lebanese army. We are total in support of the US and other allies, Western allies in this effort. And the third principle is following the fall of the Assad regime is harnessing regional forces to stabilize Syria and turn into a buffer against the Iranian axis. The fourth element is deepening the moderate regional coalition, returning to a fast-track normalization with Saudi Arabia and expanding the Abraham Accords. And I really want to get into that with follow-up questions that you may have. I've heard what the Jonathan has said on this matter, and I think, it's not only a necessity, it's about building a different future, a future, again, with radical Islam, not just Shia, but Sunni, is also being active here, and with Muslim Brotherhood theories and supporters that support violence and violence acts, unfortunately, and we need to definance it and de-support it. And now with hostages are coming back, and there is a real opportunity with the Trump administration to be able to do so. And so it's not just anti-Iran, it's much broader than that. The first element of the Abraham Shield Plan is implementing a blockade plan against Iran and preventing its nuclearization. The sixth element is Israeli declaration, which is a very important key part of this plan of a gradual, responsible, secure path of separation between the Palestinian and Israelis as part of this comprehensive regional agreement. Now, besides the principle of the Abraham Shield Plan, I want to say, from my analysis on and this is I think it's a key point that is not being spoken about, and this is where people, the Dvorah Forum and women in general and diplomatic more proponents of diplomacy can have, is that this is a crucial point of time where the international community has a crucial and an excessive, I can't even describe in words how important the role of the international community is moving forward in this recent in recent months to come. And this is because this is the opportunity to take the diplomatic route, to take the non-combatant route. But if we don't have massive support from the international community to de-radicalize the Palestinian territories via education, via UNRWA, via other mechanism, via what they've been seeing in the news, in Al Jazeera specifically, and to have a support that say that this is unacceptable moving forward, that if we want to create a future where we don't get another, not just October 7, but a Gaza conflict. I mean, I'm highly aware of the suffering that is going on in the Palestinian territories. And I think the situation in the West Bank is especially volatile. There have been hundreds of thousands of workers have been without job, without pay, without salary. And the situation is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be very explosive. And the next arena will be the West Bank arena. So I'm very, very much concerned about this. And we shouldn't now take pause for a second away from the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We have to put all of our efforts right now to get back into some sort of negotiation table, and this is part of the Abraham Accords. Obviously, Saudi Arabia as a key player, both now in Lebanon and in Syria, and we need to join forces to create this new reality. I think I will open up now to questions if you have on the. And I want to stress again, it's an Israeli NGO with an initiative. It's not. It's supposed to. We want to create or enforce or strengthen voices in Israel that believe in this regional security reality, and to make it more accessible to the public, and not just expert on regional security, but to make the Israeli public understand that we can join forces with partners in the region, and we don't have to be alone. We have to be strong, because without capabilities, deterrence, and other endeavors won't work. But lead with power, but also join forces with power.
Sure.
So that's the only way forward. So happy
Thank you.
to
Thank you very much, Shiri, for the introduction. One question which follows kind of what you just said about the fact that it's an Israeli organization, and that you're still trying to raise public awareness, domestic awareness and support. But are there other countries or agencies that are officially or unofficially involved in this coalition or showing interest? If you can talk about that.
Yeah, they are been showing interest, but I can't really disclose the government involvement. But there are speakers tomorrow that will participate from the Emirates, for instance. And we've been getting growing interest in this initiative. And I think it's very important to support and lay the foundation and the infrastructure for what I believe will be the return of the Abraham Accords efforts. I think, and this is something that I forgot to stress in my point. Look, the main victory for what will happen now is not in combat, it's strategically. And the only strategic victory that can happen is the normalization with Saudi Arabia. This is what almost every analyst that I know have seen as one of the main. There have been a few main strategic reasons for Hamas to go for the October 7 attack, but one of the main thing is the normalization with Saudi Arabia. Strategically speaking, also the economic corridor that was supposed to transfer from India through the Gulf, through the port of Haifa, and that way take away a lot of strategic potential harm Iran could do to Saudi Arabia and other players in the Gulf. So that was a security threat in their point of view, and major part of why the October 7 attacks happened when they did.
And what is the key stumbling block to achieving normalization with Saudi Arabia? And is the founding of a Palestinian state really the be all and end all of this normalization, given the fact that it seems quite far away?
So I think the Saudis and the Saudi public in particular will have to see that Israel is giving something in that area, some kind of prospects. Now that shouldn't be in the form of a concrete timeline in my point of view, but in a few conditions that if they happen, like de-radicalization, like realizing that the Jewish state is here to stay, and it can be a source of collaboration and bringing more security to the region rather than seen as a threat, a security threat.
Okay, there's a question from FA also.
Yes, hi, thank you for doing this. This is related to this last question. Some of the speakers that we heard today said that the only way forward in Gaza is to have a permanent military presence, an Israeli military presence. How compatible is that with normalization with Saudi Arabia? Do you think that they would be okay with a continued military presence in Gaza?
I think that if we endeavor to formulate this in phases, you're going to the short term and then the long term. I think that if Israel, again, it's not a matter of timing; it's a matter of having the right conditions. I think there will be an inclination in the Israeli public, at least, to have an entity that doesn't have military presence. So if the conditions are set for ending military rule in occupying some of the territories in Gaza, I think that's possible. I think that if we put it as an aspiration that the Israeli government is willing, and I think it's very much I think most of the Israeli public doesn't want to be present, certainly not in a civil matter like with settlements, civil settlements. It's really on the fringe of Israeli public opinion. As for the military side, if there is a military force that is strong enough to replace and is willing, and like we're seeing in, I think the reality in southern Lebanon is something of a mechanism that would probably be similar to what Gaza would be in the future, that Israel will remain to have the ability to act when it sees credible threats. It needs to do this in a coalition with other players. That is the only way we can strategically defeat Hamas and not tactically. Otherwise, we'll just be this endless cycle of violence that we've seen ever since the disengagement plan in 2005.
Shiri, one reporter is asking you to elaborate a little bit more on what you believe to be how Israel should be dealing better or differently with the threat from Yemen, given that you spoke a little bit about it at the beginning.
So Yemen is a very complicated situation that I don't think there is anyone has a real solution or an answer. And if I have to predict, I predict that it won't stop firing at Israel and that it will come up with different excuses. There is a real challenge it's been a real challenge ever since the civil war in Yemen broke out for both Saudi Arabia and the UAE to defeat the Houthis, giving their tactics. Right now, Iran has supplied the Houthis with independent capabilities, and they don't need Iran's guidance anymore and capabilities anymore. They can do it on their own. Obviously, what Israel, along with the US and UK, has done with the Houthi against the Houthis in the last couple of months has been important, but it will be very hard to defeat. And again, I think this Saudi Arabia normalization again is a win strategically that is very much important. And in that battle, because right now in the Arab world, Houthis are seen as the defender of Palestinians. We have to change that narrative, and the way to change that narrative is through the regional alliance that I've been speaking about. And of course, that will have to be with concessions by Israel. But Israel needs to realize that this is the way to strategically defeat Iran, to strategically defeat its enemies and the enemies of peace. You know, we've seen over and over again that whenever a peace plan is come together, it's the most dangerous time. We've seen it in the Intifada, in the first Intifada, in the second Intifada, and activity we've seen ever since. And also with, like I said, one of the reasons for the October 7th attack is the normalization with Saudi. So whenever there is a possibility of peace, there is a possibility of war again. And we must see that reality and face it, and be very much aware and prepared for that possibility.
Very clear. We're almost out of time, but we do have a couple of questions just to get through. How does the initiative see the role or contrast to the role of Turkey in the region, specifically if we look at what happened in Syria just a few weeks ago? How are the other players in the region looking at what Turkey is trying to do, and more or less what do you envision as what Israel's foreign policy towards a country that we used to have very good even military cooperation with up until the Mavi Marmara incident?
A great question, a very important factor. I'm not, the initiative doesn't address Turkey, so I'm going to put the initiative aside and speak as what I believe. I believe, you know, the Middle East historically has been, and we have a tendency in the West and specifically in Israel to view everything as a zero-sum game, or as something that is very black and white or binary. But Middle East is not a binary situation. It's a balance of power. We've seen, you know, Iran has been on the rise for the last few years, given its regional, policy by Qasem Soleimani. What has been advances is, you know, axis of resistance. And now we're seeing the counter and what Qatar and Turkey has been advancing, and Syria is a key part of that. There is a great question of what happened with Syria and its relations to Turkey moving forward. You know, Erdogan has been on record saying that they have gotten to Damascus, and now Jerusalem is next, and Damascus is just on the way to conquer Jerusalem. So we need to be very much aware of this. This needs to be a subject of debate between our Israel and its allies, especially the U.S. administration. We know President Trump is relatively close to Erdogan, and we need to be very transparent with how we view Turkey. Which is it's not an enemy, but it's a rival. But it's very different than Iran. The relationship between Turkey and Israel is very different than the relations Israel has, the non-relations it has with Iran. Up until October 7, we had 1.5 million Israelis going through Istanbul every year. It's transformed into this aerial hub that a lot of Israeli use, and of course, because of the war, that was canceled by Turkey. But the economic relationship was very robust before the war, and it will be very hard moving forward. But I think it'd be more beneficial to speak to Turkey and to negotiate and to go with diplomatic means. Of course, we have also the Kurdish situation, which is very important to Israel, and it's been supportive of the Kurdish cause throughout the years, and it's a moral imperative by Israel as well, and we must not forget it. And the Kurds are allies of Israel in the Middle East, and we must treat them as such. But I think I completely, I mean, the question was alluding to the Turkey's role and importance in the new Middle East that is forging, and we must keep in mind that it has rivalries also with Saudi, with Jordan, with Egypt, with Iran, and so even with Turkey, this alliance with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, is also very important. And of course, Jordan and Egypt that Israel already has peace treaties with. And here we also have a common interest. I think both, not only Iran was trying to disrupt the rule of the king of Jordan, and it has a very important place in Israel's national security apparatus. So I think Turkey and how we view it and how the relationship will be going forward is going to be very dynamic and very crucial in the months and years to come.
Very clear. Shiri, just one last question that's come in, and it's kind of addressing some of the things you said at the beginning, but if you can expand a little bit more, given the fact that 15 months have gone by and Israel's had to make its military decisions largely based on this this world context and diplomatic context with its allies and everything, and how do you view how the Arab states, the moderate states, whether it's Saudi or the UAE, have viewed the way that Israel's allies in the West have been dealing with Israel and guiding it towards the policies that it had wanted to see during the war, and how is that influencing its decisions about the region?
I'm not sure I completely understand
I tried to
this.
connect a few questions together to save time, but I guess I did the
Okay, I'll try to tackle it in a different way. Look, obviously the most important view is the one of the US, and there are differences between how the Democratic administration is approaching this and how the Republican administration is approaching this. I think, and I've been very critical of how the Democratic administration has been reluctant to use the tone of threats. And I think what is happening in recent weeks with Trump changing just the tone, he's just changed the tone in a threatening tone, and it's been very influential. Of course, the fact that he's been nominated and elected president has also been helpful. But look how dramatic it was, and I think it's a miss by the Democratic administration. I think answer the question, or the people in the Middle East, and I can say I now work for a think tank to deal with Israel-Africa relations. We've been hearing that in the last few years, and we've seen, the head of the intelligence unit, Rachat Mechkar, Talia, help me out here, the
head of research division in the IDF's intelligence.
Yeah, he just, he was interviewed recently. The interview went out on Sunday, and he's been saying that the partners and allies in the region has been viewing how the US has treated the Israeli administration in recent years, and the recent year, and that also affected how they view the Israeli power and stance in the region. So as long as we've, I know it's kind of puzzling, but if Israel gains support, almost unanimous support by both parties in the US, it will make it much stronger, but it will make the way they need stability, right? They need stability when they look in Israel, how its relationship with the US is, and the stability in looking at Israel and what its stand in the region is very important. And now they've seen that even though they weren't sure the US will be there for Israel, Biden has shown that it's there for Israel no matter what. And I think moving forward, this is a historical and very important piece of the Israelis' deterrence and Israel's national security, that people in the region and around the world understand that Israel and the US are there for each other, and the US will stand by Israel. And that is a very important piece of the puzzle. And realizing that, everybody needs to be able to align. All right, and I'll say it like that. And I think, yes, of course, there's been criticism, but I think that the criticism also come with the lack of understanding, will the US be there for Israel or not? And once now they see that it will be, no matter what, now this opportunity for regional security has presented itself. And before we finish, I just want to say tomorrow is the official launch of the initiative of the Abraham Plan and the regional coalition, the Coalition for Regional Security. It will be at Tel Aviv University at the ANU Museum of Jewish People at 6 p.m. I can send you all the details if you want to attend. You're invited. The keynote speaker will be Gadi Eisenkot, but we'll also be hearing from General Petraeus via Zoom and former Minister Dan Meridor, and also others, countless others, ambassadors, business people, Eyal Vadman and others. I think it would be a great event for you to follow.
Sounds amazing, and I'll just point out that Dan Meridor is also the chairman of our advisory board at the Jerusalem Press Club. But yes, we'll make sure to send that out, and it sounds amazing, and we wish you the best of luck. Shiri Fein Grossman, thank you so much for your time and your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you to everybody who joined in.
Thank you.
Keep following us for more events. I can promise you that we're going to keep providing briefings around the clock over the dynamic news cycle. Bye.